Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Ratitude Podcast. I'm really excited for our guest today, and it's so interesting how we came to be. A mutual friend suggested that Diana join me on a podcast, and I reached out to her, and she said, sure. And she's like a famous person. This is like one of the few really famous people I've got on the podcast. She's written 12 books, including a few for the Chicken Soup for the Soul series, a cookbook, and she's got a new book out called Expect Magic. And I'm so excited to read this because that's the way I live my life, is expecting magic. And so I'm really excited to talk about magic with Diana Wentworth, and she has another name that she could tell us about. And so anyway, Diana, we're going to have a lot of fun here. Welcome to the Ratitude Podcast.
Oh, what fun to be with you, Robert.
Yeah. So let's start out with this idea of magic. I want to start there and just hear about it, because I think I live my life this way. And particularly in the last month or so, just magical things are happening all the time. And I call them serendipitous moments. Or if you remember the book Celestine Prophecy, it's like,
yes,
every day something is happening and I'm going that direction, going that direction, going that direction, going like, wow, could life get any better? So tell me about your process, your expecting magic.
Oh, my whole life, I have really observed how magic has shown up. And I use that word because we'll never really understand what this whole quantum field is. We'll never really understand while we're in a body, I guess, what's really going on. So to me, it is really a sense of interconnection with all that is, and that it's much more available to us than we may realize simply by, I ask quantum questions, for instance. These are questions that have the vibration of the solution. So I don't wake up in the morning like most people who go, oh my gosh, what do I have to do today? There's kind of this feeling of dread and wanting to control everything. But I wake up and think, wow, what's going to roll into my life today that's going to be amazing? So I have this sort of an expectancy, a frequency of expectancy. And I think that makes all the difference, because looking at my life, I'm in awe of all of the many coincidences, as you mentioned in the Celestine Prophecy, and serendipitous events, synchronicities, things that roll in all the time.
Yeah, you use the word expectancy. So you don't wake up the first thing and look at your cell phone to see how many likes you got or who sent you notes or things like that. You just wake up and said, I'm expecting this day to be amazing, right?
I can't wait to see what's going to happen.
Can't wait to see. So this is what kind of this show is all about, is how did that develop? Like, what happened in your formation, whether it's through childhood or adulthood, that you got to that place? Because that's what our audience is interested in. I want our audience to wake up fully expecting for brilliant, beautiful things to happen each and every day. And they're looking for clues like, how did you get to that place?
Well, it really happened very early. My family was a troubled family. I had a father who we didn't realize at the time was obviously bipolar. And he had a lot of terrorizing things. He sent me off to boarding school when I was 8 and so on. And so my kind of core loneliness was really what motivated my whole life. But I remember one time being absolutely devastated after an experience with him and sitting on my bed. And it's like I heard a voice. It wasn't a voice. I sensed the words or the message, nothing really bad will ever happen to you. And now I look back on my life, and even though I've had losses like we all do, and troublesome times, I can honestly say nothing really bad has ever happened to me, because it's all been for my growth and my, I learned so much from the difficulties, and so I've really learned at this advanced age to be, to look at things that happen like, well, what is there in this for me that I'm not seeing yet? I ask a lot of questions and I listen, and I feel like I really have developed an ability to tune in and receive empowering feelings and be able to raise my own spirits, which I guess is my super talent, you know?
So how did you get the idea to even do that? So you have this bipolar dad. I know all about bipolar. Is it a result of being raised that way? Or did you have like school or a mentor, a mom, anything else that said, oh, if you have this, go this direction?
Well, I think there were a lot of signs that began to show up. I began to notice that when I was in a very kind of open and positive place, things would happen. I'll tell you a quick story that I'm kind of known for because I was at UCLA. I was a freshman. I was on the pledge porch with all my sorority sisters, and they were playing the music really loud. And I said, "Hey, can you turn that down?" And somebody said, "Oh, Diana doesn't like Elvis Presley." And something happened that I blurted and I said, "Actually, I do like him and I'm going to date him someday." And he was in the army in Germany at the time. And so the crazy thing is, 2 months later, my mother took me on a tour of Europe, and we started in Paris at the Prince de Galles Hotel. And one of the kids in the uh, tour came running up to me as I was coming through the lobby, and he said, "Oh, Diana, Elvis Presley's in the dining room, and I'm too scared to ask him for an autograph. Will you come with me?" So we went into the dining room, which was closed, and Elvis was standing there in his army uniform with two men who I learned later were bodyguards. But long story short, because this is already in two of my books, he invited me to go with him that night to the Lido nightclub. And we became friends, and I have letters from him and so on. So that was a real clue of, hey, there's much more going on here than I can understand. How could I possibly have said such a thing to my sorority sisters who didn't really believe me until I actually took them to his birthday party a couple years later? So and then I had the most amazing thing happen. I had been engaged to a man that seemed like the perfect man to marry. And I had
Not Elvis.
no, not Elvis. This is years later. I was only 18 when I met Elvis, but this was when I was 21. And I had
But didn't he like the young ones?
he definitely did. It was just before he met Priscilla, who he met in
Okay.
Germany. We were more friends than any kind of romance going on. But I was engaged to a man who I suddenly had a knowing that it wouldn't be the kind of marriage that I really sensed that I wanted. I wanted somebody who would be a really true partner and, very romantic and loving and that I would be wonderfully safe with. So I broke that engagement, and my parents happened to be going to Asia. I tagged along at the last minute, and our last stop was Hong Kong. I woke up in the morning, and I had a knowing to just get dressed and go stand down in the lobby. So I did that, and I was just thinking, I wonder what I'm doing here. And the elevator door opened, and out walked Paul Von Welanetz, and we were engaged 3 days later and married for 25.
3 days?
Yeah. Both of
Wow.
my husbands were instant kind of knowing. So I think there's a
Wow.
whole
Well,
lot to be developed in this, being in this body and learning to receive signals and so on.
I actually understand that. When I met my first wife, we were married or engaged 7 dates later. Now, they were longer dates, but they weren't days. They were dates because she lived in Colorado and I lived in California.
Yeah.
But I do understand that kind of love at first sight because actually, my little story was we met at Stanford in the dormitories. We were at a track meet there, and she was down the hallway and just had this glow around her head. And I told my friends before I even met her, that's the person I'm going to marry. And so I totally understand that. But how did we get this magic? Like, why do some people feel that and some people don't? Or do you explain that in the book on how to, or you just say, expect magic and magic happens? What's your process?
Well, it's fun because of all my books, this is the only one that really has all of the techniques and so on that I feel have enhanced my ability to magnetize wonderful events in my life. And so it has to be about the reader, in this kind of a book. I've been a storyteller all my life, as you can probably tell already, but I wanted to make it so that the reader had actual practices and things that they can do, and encourage them to make joy their compass in their life, and to make a list, for instance, of people that they admire enormously, and then to make a list next to each name of their qualities. And so realize that these people are shining mirrors to them of qualities that they have in themselves, to be
Mm-hmm.
developed, and things like that. So the book Expect Magic is really exciting for me because the response has been amazing. I have been getting all
Oh, good.
sorts of messages and letters and people reaching out, and it's just the first time I've ever had exactly this kind of an experience with a book.
Oh, well, just think about the next time it's going to be even bigger.
Yes, why not?
Do you have a next time, a next book in your mind already?
Well, this is really exciting, and maybe you're the first person to hear about it. There's an author named Donna Markova, and she wrote a poem that went viral, probably 15 years ago, called "I Will Not Die: An Unlived Life." And she has
Mm-hmm.
written 20 books, and I read her books quite often. I highlight them and read them in bed in the morning, the highlights. And I thought, well, she doesn't know that she's greatly loved from me, so I'm going to write to her. And
Mm-hmm.
I looked on YouTube. There was an interview with her, and she gave her real address, her email address. So I wrote her a letter thinking, well, I felt good just doing it, just really telling her how
Sure.
much she'd meant to me. But within a day, she wrote back to me, and we've got this fabulous correspondence going on. And it's gotten really deep. And I happen to be going to Maui next week. She happens to live in Maui. And so we are going to go walking on the beach together. So this led to my next thing. I'm going to do a 3-session course, and I call it Love Letters. I think in these days, in these times right now, we tend to watch the news and spiral down and lose hope. But if we focus on the people who have really been shining mirrors to us in our life or inspired us, and we start expressing that in some way, we are not only creating a connection with that person, but we're creating an heirloom, something that's really part of our legacy. So I just wrote to my 2 granddaughters for their birthdays and really poured out all the memories that I could remember and put in some photographs and everything so that when I'm gone, they'll still have that. And it felt so
Mm-hmm.
good doing that because I was able to tell them what I admired about them and what it meant to me. So love letters is my new thing.
Okay. I really like that. I heard something similar to that at one of my favorite football players, Peyton Manning. He used to write a letter, a handwritten letter to people that helped him in little ways, whether it was the towel boy at the locker room or something else. And that just really inspired me. I actually had some custom stationery made, and I just decided that every day I'm going to write not a love letter, but a gratitude, a thank you letter to different people that might not see it. Just think if everyone in the world did that, we'd have a different kind of world, wouldn't we?
We would have a different world. And I'm so glad you told me that story. I will use that and my grandson is named Peyton after Peyton Manning. So
Oh, okay. So you've got a course on this and you're going to be teaching that, but you also have a film, a true story of love.
well, I have a romantic memoir called Send Me Someone. It's the story of how my husband, Paul Von Welanetz, when he was passing from cancer, said, "I don't want you to be alone." I said, "Send me someone." And he did. With 2
Mm.
months later, my next husband walked into my life. And so Lifetime bought the rights to that film, but they never made the film. So I still
Oh,
have,
okay.
there is no film yet, but I'm expecting there will be.
Yet, but you're expecting magic
I'm
there.
expecting magic for sure.
Okay. Well, let's make some dual magic because I actually have a film in the works myself, or I hope that I do.
Mhm.
After my dad died, my mom was alone and she didn't really want to live any longer. But one of the things my dad had done was take her back to Hungary to see all the relatives. So I decided I'm going to do that each summer.
Mm.
And I was married at that time, and that person liked to ask questions of my mom and hear the stories of growing up in Hungary. And I was listening to these stories and going like, I know most of these stories, but there's some of them I just don't know. So the second
Mhm.
year we did this, I decided I was just going to record her with a little cassette recorder, all these stories to be able to share with my kids and future generations, just to know, how they came to have this great life in America. And it was so interesting because I had like hours and hours of tape. And then I came back and I was in California, and I just, of all things, I posted on Craigslist. I'm looking for a ghostwriter to take these audio recordings and turn them into a book. And within 15 minutes, someone in Santa Monica, 15 minutes away,
Wow.
responded and said, I'm Hungarian. I've written 3 books now. I'd be honored to do this.
Uh,
And
Magic, right?
within an hour, I drove down there. We had an agreement. It was supposed to be done in 11 months. Now, it took 7 years and a second writer, but it finally was done. And now we've got a screenplay written and a
Wow.
producer and a lead actress, and we're going out for funding. And so I guess I'm expecting magic. I'm expecting to be at the Oscars. Maybe you could come.
Hey.
We could both be up for the Oscar the same year. We could sit on the other sides of the aisle and go, oh, I'm going to beat you. I'm going to beat you. We'll just be happy if either one of us wins.
Isn't it fun? Isn't it wonderful to be able to do that, to share those kind of stories? Because that's where the meaning in life is, I think, when we really listen deeply to each other. That's been a very
Mhm.
important, part of my life for sure.
Earlier, you mentioned that you're a good storyteller and you have been all your life. I hadn't been. I was a really quiet, shy boy. It's only in the last 10 years or so that I'm able to actually speak like this. But what was it about your upbringing that allowed you or inspired you or caused you to become this beautiful storyteller that you are?
Well, this is one of the luckiest things that ever happened. My first career with my husband, Paul, was in the culinary world. We wrote a cookbook that was Cookbook of the Year. We had a television series on cooking and entertaining. We had a school on Sunset Boulevard where Wolfgang Puck and all the famous chefs taught cooking. And I won't go into the whole story of how we changed careers, but we eventually left the culinary world, started an organization called the Inside Edge that attracted all of the thought leaders, emerging thought leaders of the time. And it was a breakfast organization that met at the Beverly Hills Hotel and at 2 other cities, at 6:30 in the morning. I know it sounds kinda crazy, but it attracted people like Jack Canfield and Mark Victor Hansen, Louise Hay, Dr. Susan Jeffers, none of whom had written books yet. And
Mm.
it was a weekly organization, and, Jack and Mark came up with the idea for Chicken Soup for the Soul while they were there, and they had 2 number 1 New York Times bestsellers with the 2 first books after being turned down by 31 publishers.
Mhm.
And their publisher said, "Hey, we need a cookbook. Everybody thinks Chicken Soup for the Soul is a cookbook." And it just happened that Paul and I had the background of writing cookbooks. So I was the first co-author in the series. And for the first time, I was writing stories because each story had a recipe attached to it. Food is such a
Mhm.
catalyst for people connecting around the table. It had all these wonderful stories, but that was the greatest thing that ever happened in my career because I was instantly a New York Times bestselling author. I got used to writing stories, and then I wrote my memoir and did another book for Chicken Soup for the Soul, and it just led to all these other opportunities that were so magical.
So going back before that, in your childhood,
Mhm.
what was the most influential for you to become this beautiful storyteller?
It's hard to say. I didn't realize I was a real storyteller until I started doing the Chicken Soup for the Soul cookbooks. That was a huge leap for me. The funny thing was that I didn't know what I was going to do after I was remarried, and I didn't need to particularly work like in the same way that I had before. I started just writing some stories that were short
Mm.
stories and about my own personal things that had happened in my life. And the phone call came in on Thanksgiving from Jack and Mark saying, "Hey, Diana, bring your cookbooks over here. We're with our publisher. You're going to do the chicken soup for the soul cookbook." And out of the 16 stories that I had already written, not knowing why, they only gave me 3 months to finish the book because QVC had ordered 900,000 copies. 15 of those stories fit in the book. So they were there all the time. It's just that I hadn't done personal essays or things like that before.
Mhm.
So, but I loved romantic movies and, things like that when I was a kid. And I loved especially hearing love stories. I think that I always
Mhm.
kind of anticipated the fact that there would be great love in my life.
You're going to like my story about my parents. It's going to be a love story. It's interesting as you say that. I started a new book yesterday. It's called A Swim in the Pond in the Rain. And it is a compilation of, I think, 7 Russian author short stories. But this author, George Saunders, he takes one page at a time from these short stories and provides commentary on it, on how it's written and where it's going and how to actually become a really good storyteller, a writer. It's fascinating. I don't really like the commentary. I like the short story part. So I found myself, I was at the beach yesterday and I was skipping the commentary part because I'm not really interested. I wanted to hear what was going on. And that's the hallmark of a good story is you read a page and you want to keep going.
Yes, for sure.
I think every friend I have all is in the process of writing a book or has a book in their mind. And, nowadays everyone could self-publish and just, write a book and they think it's going to be amazing. Can you think of any kind of advice you could give to all my friends who want to write a book and have 9,000 copies, 900,000 copies pre-ordered from Amazon in advance? How do you do something like that?
That was crazy.
In today's age, not back when you were in the Inside Edge and a couple of guys just decide, oh, we're going to write a book, and somehow they became overnight sensations. But we know overnight sensations never overnight. It's a long time to get to overnight. Any advice on that?
The publishing world has changed greatly since I first published. Almost all of my books were published by traditional publishers where they buy your book, they give you an advance, they take care of all the marketing and the publicity, and you get a royalty. And that royalty is between 10 and 15%, depending on the number of books sold.
Mm-hmm.
Jack and Mark kind of broke the mold. They happened to find a magazine publisher who believed in them after all of their turndowns, and they got a larger percentage. And they just that's all that publishing company did. But now, my latest book is published by Ignite Publishing, and I have tremendous appreciation for a woman named Lady J.B. Owen, who reached out to me to invite me to. I actually asked her to be on the cover as a co-author, which is unusual, but she helps people write their books, get them out, get them into Amazon, get them printed in China, so they're very inexpensive. It's very important to find somebody, I think, who will actually give you a package of some kind that includes everything. Because if you're trying to do the marketing yourself and you're trying to control the printing and work with Amazon and find out how to get it into the Barnes and Noble and all of that, most of us aren't skilled at that. And so we need help. And I know there are other companies that do that kind of publishing. Even Amazon will do some of it for you. But it's really important to feel like whoever you're working with really gets you and really wants to do the very best they can for you to make it be a huge success.
That's really good advice. I think that people would be doing that. Okay, so as you're kind of you're aging young, right? You're reversing aging. I could see that in you. You've got your love letters coming. You've got all sorts of things. What other, like this morning when you woke up and said, I'm expecting something magical to happen, are you trying to will it to happen, or you just know that something magical is going to happen?
I just always expect it, and I'm blown away almost every single day.
Hmm.
As I'm going off to Hawaii, I'm going to be meeting with Donna Markova. There are a whole lot of opportunities coming up that are just come out of the blue. And I just feel that, you don't need to say, hey, will you please do this? This is almost like you're feeling you're not worthy of it and you need help. There's a kind of a
Hmm.
vibration or a frequency that goes with that. I kind of jump up and down and say, hey, I need this right now. And I feel that that's one of the things in the book. There are all these different feelings of connecting with a frequency that says yes to you.
Hmm.
And it proves itself every single day.
Yeah. So you mentioned the words vibration and frequency. Those have become uh, pretty common words in my language. I'm one of Dr. Joe Dispenza's corporate trainers,
Oh, great.
and I'm into Abraham Hicks and all sorts of things right now. The Seraphim Blueprint about vibration and frequency, and listening to Matthias De Stefano talk about he's in 3D, 4D, 5D, he's going all the way to 9D, and I'm trying to understand these things. What's your background around the words vibration and frequency? Where did your thinking come from about
Well,
that?
one of my close friends who actually gave me an endorsement on the back of the book is Penny Pierce, who wrote the book Frequency, and she wrote lots of other books. And let me see, Transparency, Leap of Perception. These are her books. I also have Dr. Barbara DeAngelis and Mark Victor Hansen and Philip Goldberg. I mean, I just have all these people who just poured out all sorts of wonderful words about the book and these are people, we had 1,700 speakers at the Inside Edge over 39 years. So
Mm.
Ram Dass, every speaker that was out there as thought leader came through the Inside Edge. And I just soaked in it. This is all that we offered at the Inside Edge was positive, uplifting information in order for people to have better lives. And so
Hmm.
I've just been steeped in it all my life.
Wow, that's absolutely incredible. I've been taking notes as you've been speaking. You've given me a lot of information, a lot of things that I'm going to go pursue.
Good.
Penny Pierce, Donna Markova,
Oh,
what are all
yeah.
these things? Ignite Publishing, all sorts of things. I hope our audience has been listening and taking notes themselves. This has been such an interesting, fascinating time with you.
Thank you.
If there's any messages that you could give to our audience who are wanting to be thought leaders, and some of them are thought leaders, and we're in the top 10 of podcasts in some category in Argentina and Romania, of all places. I have no idea how that even happens. But what kind of advice would you give or suggestions to our audience as we close here?
Well, I just absolutely believe in magic. That would be most of all. And reach out to me at dianawentworth.com because I'm available to talk to people and offer some advice. I know that if by noticing who we admire and what they are radiating, it's a mirror to us of who we are. And
Hmm.
I have a letter up above my desk from Keller to her publisher. She's somebody I admire greatly. And when I think about what she models to me, she was somebody who really took adversity and used it and overcame it and became something who's a glowing, shining mirror to all of us.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Diana. I know that everyone is going to be expecting magic from now on every time they wake up. I know that when you woke up, you were going like, there's going to be something really magical today. And little did we know it was going to be being on the Ratitude
Well,
podcast.
I expected it, so it turned out that way for sure.
What an honor and pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much.
Thank
Have a
you.
beautiful rest of your day. And the trip to Maui sounds great. And when I get back to California, maybe we could get together and share some more stories.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
We could share stories.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
And for the Ratitude podcast, go out there and expect some beautiful magic and make it happen.